Beg your pardon? Meredith, who is this coarse person with the foreign accent?
Growing marijuana is truly an art. I mean, it really is, and it's not. I'm not just saying that. It is feel. Even identifying why some plants aren't growing as tall, or why they may just not be looking right, or everything is feel. You would think that when it's called weed, it grows like crazy, but man, it is hard to grow. It's hard to keep like no mold on it. It's hard to keep bugs off of it. Everything is run out of Canada, basically. There's exceptions of that, or was, because it's illegal in the United States, and so that's how you do your banking and stuff through Canada. And so we ended up getting purchased by a much larger company for close to $1 billion. So
Hey Jake, welcome back.
what's up, man? How's it been?
Yeah, since we last talked, your appearance has changed. You look like a rock star of some description
Oh,
now.
it does. I don't know. I just don't cut my hair really. So
Hey, exciting. You've been to a North Carolina basketball game. You told me you saw Michael Jordan play live. Is
I
that true?
did actually. I mean, I was a kid. I was like 9 or 10 years old, and yeah, I went to see him play in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Pretty exciting. They were playing Virginia. I had to look it up to be sure, but they were playing Virginia, and he scored a whole bunch of points. They won the game. I think he made some significant impacts in the end, but he wasn't Michael Jordan. Wasn't Michael Jordan then, but I became a fan in that instance. It was like 1983.
So you think he's the greatest of all time, yeah?
There's no question.
Forget about this LeBron nonsense.
Yeah, LeBron makes a top four for sure.
Top four, who's in there in between then? Chamberlain?
I don't know. It's hard to Wilt or Kareem. Kobe is right there. Except Kobe is no one ever argues whether it's Kobe Bryant or Michael Jordan, because they have the same style of play, and so they're kind of
Yeah.
like they're similar player, and so nobody really says that Kobe's better. But listen, LeBron wins it as far as like Iron Man longevity. Yeah, the guy's gonna play for 10 more years. I swear. He's a freak athlete. Maybe one of the best
Yeah.
athletes ever.
That's true. That he might very well be.
I mean, he's 40, 41 years old, and he's performing like he's an all-star. I mean, he's incredible.
Yeah. I agree. It's crazy. Tom Brady as well.
But give me LeBron at 30 or Jordan at 30, oh, it's not even close.
Well, don't forget Philip Rivers, who's now back in the NFL.
Yeah. He's a dinosaur. I learned that Tom Brady made a comment about him, and I learned that the NFL does not allow anybody to play beyond 48 years old. Because Tom Brady said, Tom was like, I'll come and play. I think he's 48 or something like that, so 49.
Yeah. Brady, I don't know. It might be too late for him, but Philip Rivers is like legit fat.
Yeah.
But what does this say about all the young kids? That the Colts lost their quarterback and they brought back a guy who had been retired for 4 seasons or
Yeah.
something, 3 seasons, and he got fat. Like, he's not in shape. And he's still better than whoever they had in the system, you know? What?
He's better. He's better. That shows the disparity between like quarterbacks and backups. Like they couldn't have a backup. That was crazy. Like 4 days before he played that game, he was coaching high school football.
Yeah,
It was crazy.
that's great. Yeah. I'm rooting for him. It's incredible. Yeah. I have to remind here to the listeners who haven't listened to the first part of your story here. We had a really interesting chat about your life in the Mormon church and then how you ended up exiting the church as your son came out as gay, and a fascinating story. So go listen to that if you haven't yet. So what's the journey to cannabis from, is it like you left religion and then you had to go as extremely to the other side as you could find, or what?
Well, there may be some subconscious kind of nods to that for sure, but no, I didn't do that overtly or anything. But I worked in the dental field for a while, and then I was getting out of that, and I had a really a longtime friend who's been involved in the cannabis industry for the last 20 years, trying to work with the merchant accounts and stuff, so to make Visa and banks to be able to accept card payments, since it's a cash only business. He'd been doing that for a long time, and then I left the dental field, and we were just kind of sitting around talking one day, and he got a phone call from an old buddy of his that was CEO of another large cannabis company, and he wanted to bring him on, and he hung up the phone, and my friend says, "Hey Jake, do you want to go work? You want to go work in the cannabis industry?" And I'm like, "Doing what?" He's like, "I don't know yet." And he's like, "Give me 30 days. We'll find something for you to do." I'm like, "Okay." Yeah, and so he asked me if I wanted to be a director of a cultivation facility, meaning where you grow everything, right? And I had my choice to go to Toledo, Ohio, or Fargo, North Dakota, and both are kind of
Backwaters.
not the most desirable places to live, but like
Yeah.
according to a lot of people. I mean, Fargo. I think Fargo is the second or third coldest city in the country. The epic movie that comes with it.
Yeah. Murder rate is pretty high. People wind up in wood chippers out there.
They have the wood chipper. The wood chipper is inside the room in their chamber of commerce. The wood chipper from the movie. So
Cool.
yeah, the big yellow thing. There's no blood on it or anything, but
Is that what you chose then? North Dakota?
yeah, I went to Fargo because I thought that would be. I genuinely thought that would be a funny. I thought that would be the best social media post. Hey, move to Fargo to grow weed, and so that's what I did. So I didn't tell anybody. I did that. I made a post and got some fun reactions, and yeah, off to a new life.
Multiple questions here.
Sure.
Firstly, North Dakota, what is the legal and business setup of marijuana in North Dakota at this time? What year are we in? And secondly, does weed even grow well out there? Why it's cold? What's the point?
So they don't do any outdoor growing. Most of it's indoors. This was 2019 that I went, and I think it had been just the previous year, 2017 or 2018, they had passed medical marijuana, which the state expected that to happen. The state kind of fought it a little bit, so they adopted. They went out and found the other state that had the most stringent laws on it, and they basically copied their rule book and applied those laws to the state of North Dakota. And so they're making it really difficult to do business there. But yeah, I don't know. I'd never been to Fargo. I had never been to North Dakota, but figured it was a fun adventure, and so I said, yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So when you arrive there, what is it? Someone walks you to this like secret underground thing under a farm like Area 51? Or is it just normal farmland? Like, what is it?
So kind of, we when I got there, we actually to set up the legality really quick. There's 3 licenses that you typically have to have, or you do have to have for cannabis. One is like a grow license, a cultivation license. One is to the retail aspect, so to be able to sell it in a dispensary. So someone that wants to open up a dispensary, they have to apply for that license, and they only gave 6 of those out in the state of North Dakota, the dispensary. So there's only 6 dispensaries, and it's not a big state. And
There's
then
only 6 people, so sounds like about right.
um, and then they gave out 2 cultivation licenses, and the other one is processing, like the lab to do the lab, so to be able to make resins and edibles and stuff. So we had our company had we had the cultivation, and then we also we also had a lab. Now we didn't. That was going to take a couple of years to get up and running, but that was all in the same site, in the same building. But when I got there's 3-4 employees there already, and the lead grower, was working out of a pod, like a shipping container. It's an actual shipping container that they had sprayed the inside with insulation and whatever, and it had whatever, it was 30 feet long, and that was the office, that was the seedlings, that was the veg, and then that was the harvest area. So he had, I mean, everything was like 10 by 10 square feet.
How can you even do the office admin with that smell? Like what?
It's crazy. I don't know. There was one guy, and then when they graduated from that, we had an R&D building, so research and development building, which is about 2,000 square feet. That's where we were when I arrived, so just barely. Now, it took me about 3 weeks to get my clearance with the state of North Dakota, so I had to sit outside, just like in the little lobby area, to do work. I wasn't allowed to go back where the plants were because I still needed the clearance from the state. but my main job there, I mean, I was a director of cultivation, so I oversaw all of it. But the real reason I was hired was two things: is to help get into our new building, which was probably 50, 60,000 square feet, maybe bigger. I know it was like a 20, $30 million building. I probably $5 to $10 million just in security cameras alone.
It seems like there is a lot of money in marijuana, as in you start with from a container, you can pretty quickly graduate to some kind of R&D facility.
Yeah, so that's actually the trick. So we were losing money. There is a lot of money, but not necessarily what you think it is. And so we were losing money. We were losing 100 to $200,000 or more a year. I think it was like 30, $40,000 a month. But our purpose there was not necessarily to grow cannabis and distribute it. Our purpose there was to maintain the licenses that we had in good standing, so we could sell our company, our big company, to another investor. So having a license in North Dakota where other companies didn't, that just made our company much more valuable in Canada, because you can't, the whole stock up, everything is run out of Canada basically. There's exceptions of that, or was, because it's illegal in the United States, and so that's how you do your banking and stuff through Canada. And so we ended up getting purchased by a much larger company for close to $1 billion. So
Seems to happen a lot in that industry. So when you started though, is this still independent weed smoking hippies? And then is it big pharma that moves in and purchases you, or how did it work?
So we were kind of big pharma in a way. Our company was a much larger company based out of Chicago, and we already had cultivation around the country. I think we had 6 or 7 states, and then we had a bunch of dispensaries, and so we were already doing really well in the United States. So one of the bigger ones in the United States. But then we were purchased by a larger group about a year after I got there. But we knew it was already happening when I was hired. We knew that transition was going to take place, and I was supposed to go there and just make sure we got into our new building without any challenges, and that we kept the license in good standing. I was more doing compliance than anything else, so I had to make sure everything was legal and we were doing everything right and accurate.
Good old fashioned Mormon discipline.
Right. I didn't tell anybody I was. Yeah. I didn't bring that fast with me there. But it raised too many questions, I think.
But subconsciously you did.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm thinking. So are there any, at this stage, are there any more independent growers around, or has it all already been corporatized?
Yeah. There's. I'm sure there's plenty. I mean, there's tens of thousands of dispensaries, right? And then there's every state. I think it's legal at some level in every state. I mean, in about 40 states right now, and I would probably say they average between having 3 and 20 cultivation facilities in each state. So if you have some mom and pop people that, well, they want a license, forever ago, they probably still have that license, unless somebody made a big offer. But yeah, it can be lucrative in some states, and it's a losing cause in other states. And President Trump just reclassified marijuana in the United States with an executive order like 2 days ago, to make it go from a Schedule 1 to a Schedule 3 substance. So they can now do research and development on it. I don't know what that's going to do really, but
So this plant, weed, it's not called weed for no reason. It's very hardy and it does grow almost anywhere. So the setup is that initially that inside in a container, the plants are growing and you guys are freezing your nuts off outside. And it's a minus a million degrees.
pretty much, yeah, yeah. And it's you would think that when it's called weed, it grows like crazy, but man, it is hard to grow. It's hard to keep it it's hard to keep like no mold on it. It's hard to keep the bugs off of it. It's hard to get the THC levels higher. It's hard to get the like the buds bigger. It's all these little things you got to do, because it's actually really difficult to grow. And I've grown some on my own, like outside of that, but it's a challenge. But it's kind of fun though. It's fun to watch the process, and you get to walk through your little grow tent or your big room, and just smell the weed, and I don't know, it's interesting. It's a lot of fun.
I mean, since we know your personal background story, I do have to ask a philosophical question. When you took the job, did you actually believe in the product? As in, what was your relationship to drugs?
So I had just started to kind of dabble a little bit into some psychedelics. Not very much, but just kind of curious. I didn't really smoke a lot of weed. I tried it a little bit, but I didn't. I mean, you got to. I was also out of Mormonism for like 6 years, I think, when I went there. So it had been some time, but I didn't really like it. And so the whole time I was in Fargo, I pretty much really never smoked it, you know. Um, and oddly enough, and we can get into this, I couldn't get it there either because I couldn't get it from what we were growing because I didn't have a medical card and I didn't care to have one. And we don't get to like sample our product, and you can't take anything out, and everything is like really tightly monitored. I mean, we've got three guys in Bismarck in the Capitol who can sit there, and they did all day and just look at cameras and just watch us work because there's 8,000 cameras in this massive building.
So it's become like the most regulated industry in America from having been illegal and cartel operated for decades, and now, yeah, they're just watching you. That's crazy. That's so boring. You can't. That's like working in a chocolate factory and not being able to taste any.
Yeah, it's crazy. And we had two of the employees I had their medical card, and so they would grow the weed, then they would go to the store, the dispensary, and pay 5 times the going rate to get their weed. You know, so people were still buying it on the street. Or But when I got there, we had like 80 or 90 patients, meaning 80 or 90 people in the entire state of North Dakota had access to the dispensaries. And there's only 6 dispensaries, and by the time I left, I think there was 400 or 500. That's it. 500 people. We had this massive facility, the 6 dispensaries to supply for 500 people. This is why we lost money every month. There was no market. There was no money coming in. But we kept our license good, and we got moved into our new building, and that was my job. So and not to do anything illegal, making sure my staff didn't steal anything, because if my staff had taken stuff out the door and we discovered, or they discovered it, we'd have been fined. They could have shut us down, you know, because they were looking for any reason at all to make us to not have us succeed. So yeah, that was a challenging thing to manage.
It's so serious and so regulated, monitored, corporate quality control, everything. Is there any fun in it for anyone? Like, are there still like are the growers of weed? Were those nerds still getting to do their thing, or what?
Kind of. So we certainly had. I mean, almost everybody that we employed, they were weed smokers. You know, they knew enough about it. But and then we had a pretty tight group, right? I mean, you know, almost everybody was brand new because we were, you know, so they didn't know each other. A couple people did, and they didn't know each other very well. But then, you know, you become like a family back there, you know, and you've got to go through a wind tunnel basically and get like from a spy movie. Then you go back there like to clean off all your clothes, any kind of debris from outside. You know, you got to swipe your card. You got to do all kinds. Put your little booties on, and then you kind of dip your feet into some sanitation, like a sanitation tray, so you don't track anything in because it can be very easy to contaminate.
Well, it's a medical factory, right? You gotta keep it sterile. So if it's medical weed, it's gotta be. So it must be strong as hell then as well. The weed grown in a medical facility.
Yeah, I mean that was the goal. I mean it was, you know, the higher percentage of THC you can get, the better chance somebody buys that strain. And so we did that. But then our employees got to, you know, you would be in a room like a 2,500 square foot room, grow room that would have 1,500 plants in it, and you'd have like 2 or 3 guys or girls in there, and they're doing whatever they're doing right to the plants. They're deleafing, and so they're making it so the buds can get as much sunlight as they can, UV rays as they can, and we pump CO2 in there, which gives them, you know, plants love their CO2, so we give them a little bit extra, and they grow a little bit bigger. But you walk in one of these rooms, and people are just hanging out, talking, pulling leaves off plants, and smelling weed, and I think there's something really that's a really good work environment to be in. I don't know. You just, even though you're not smoking it, you're not doing anything. It's just fun to be around it.
And when there's that much of it around and it's on your skin and on your when you're breathing it, even if you're not smoking it, I think everyone's a little bit kind of sort of high all the time in the facility, right?
Doesn't work that way, unfortunately. You got to apply heat to THC, or else it doesn't work. Now, if you burned it down, nobody would ever escape because we'd all be high looking for the exit. But um,
Yeah, you mentioned the lights. So I'm thinking very energy consuming. You're in like the basically an Arctic environment in Fargo, and what is it? UV lights, really powerful ones. Where's the energy coming from?
yeah, from the grid. But I think our monthly bill was about $30,000 to $35,000 for power, and we had a generator outside that was bigger than the pod that we started in. It was massive, so you couldn't afford to have power go out for more than 10 minutes, or the water not run. So we had a hydroponic room that was like the size of a lot of homes, and feeding different waters with different nutrients in it to all these different rooms. And it's good. There's 3 stages that they go to. I don't know, we'll have like little clones. So basically, small plants about this big, and then once they get a couple of weeks, they go into a veg room, a vegetative room, and then they can sit there forever. And so it's I don't know if this is interesting. So the weed will never bloom into a flower until you adjust the light schedule. And so we would have different schedules for lights, to make them how we want. And then once we wanted the flowers once we wanted the weed to like bloom and to start creating bud, then we would switch. We go to another room, and those had 12 hours of sunlight and 12 hours of darkness, basically mimicking the real world. Because that most of the time the weed's going to grow outside more naturally in the summertime when you have longer days, and so that's what triggers it to know it can bloom. So you just replicate that indoors, but you've got to move. So you'd have one day where you'd move 1,500 plants from one room into the next. So it's all hands on deck. We have 14 or 15 of us, and we're basically putting plants on carts, rolling them down the hallways, inside, or assembly lining it, and putting them and transferring it over. And then within 2 months, they're bloomed, and you've got nice big bud, and it's a lot of fun. But yeah, nobody's getting high, unfortunately.
No. Well, that's cool, Leo. No, the nitty-gritty is interesting, by the way. That's very interesting, that you're like artificially trying to do what would happen outdoors. But people do grow this stuff successfully actually outdoors. So
Mhm.
why aren't you guys in somewhere where there's just sunlight outside?
Well, 'cause it's mostly because of how it's regulated. I think in most states, I can speak about North Dakota mostly, but most states they don't allow it outdoors because it's too easily stolen, or it's security. Now the states that have recreational laws, they'll allow you to grow like 4 plants or 6 plants at a time. And that's for personal use, because nobody, I mean, 6 plants would be, even for the heaviest smoker, 6 plants would be enough weed probably for most people for 4 years. So you don't need very many, but yeah. So I would assume that's why they do it indoors. That makes sense. So, but yeah, you basically recreate Mother Nature, right? We have fake sun on a fake cycle with fake oxygen or or real carbon dioxide, and we're pruning all the time, right? We're pruning and reshaping the plants, and so we're taking all the little stems and having them like push outward, and then you bend them up, and so you have a barren plant, and there's just all these little stems. They're all just kind of poking up, so that all the flowers on top, so the light can get it, and then they'll grow bigger. So
Yeah.
so you take all the leaves off because all the leaves, the leaves don't need the light, right? And they'll take some of the light. We want the flower to get the light. So that's, you've got two people that are just doing that all day long, every day, 5 days a week or more. And all they're doing is just taking the leaves off. And by the time they finish a room, the leaves have started growing again at the beginning of the room. So that's their job. Cycle, cycle, cycle.
Interesting. Yeah. So, how do you handle, like, obviously indoors, the pests and diseases and stuff, I'm assuming, are still a problem, but not as much as outdoors in nature. So, is it just harsh Monsanto chemicals sprayed all over them, or because I'm guessing the weed smoking hippie does wants it organic or whatever.
Yeah, we don't put anything on there. What we it's much easier to be preventative than it is reactive, right? And so that's why it's the security and what we have to do even to be able to get into the back, so to speak, of the building. You walk in the front, there's a key card to get in. You walk in the front, we have a security guard, we have some offices, but anybody can come in there with approval, but only people that can go in the back, in the real back. We can't even have a visitor in there. They have to have a card approved by the state. And that's what I'm saying. You go through this air shower, as they call it. So you walk in there, you put your hands up like you're going through security, and you just get hit with air, and it takes all the everything off. But we've also changed everything. New shoes. We wore scrubs. We've got headwear, beanies, or hairnets of some sort. So everything that we bring in from the outside, we go into it's like a locker room in high school, and you change out, and you get new clothes, and then you go back there. Yeah, very, very sterile. And when you do that, it's a lot easier to keep everything out. And at the end of every single day, every day before we all went home, we stopped an hour early and we sterilized every room every day. Imagine deep cleaning your house every single day, like spring cleaning. It's kind of what you did. Everybody stopped, but that's what you had to do,
So if you don't, what are the main bugs or diseases that come in? What's a bad one?
I mean, mold is a big one, and then there's 30 different kind of little bugs and stuff, insects that can get in there, and spider mites and stuff that can get in there, and just on any given day. And mold is huge though, because once you get mold, it's there's nothing you can do, and it spreads real quickly. There's tests and stuff that you could treat to see how moist the plants are, right? To see if they're even after they're harvested, and you take all the bud out, and you're putting them in buckets at that point. You have to check those like daily to make sure that there's no mold growing. It's just a constant dance.
Because wherever there's water and mist and moisture, there will be mold,
Yep.
right?
Yeah, and everything, right? Everything in water is everything that's watered. It's all automated, And so I can sit at home in my apartment in Fargo and get on my phone and see how the watering is going, right? You can watch the cycles and stuff like that. But if you had power outages or something weird, or something got in the way of a camera or something like that in the middle of a snowstorm, which you have big ones there, I'd have to get in my car at 3 a.m. sometimes and drive down there just to confirm that somebody wasn't trying to break in, because all it was wind, like rattling the doors, and it would send a sensor, and somebody in Chicago would get a phone call, would get alerted, and then he'd call me and wake me up, and I had to get out of my bed at 2 a.m. and drive in like a snowstorm on the freeway we were about 10-15 minutes out of Fargo, and just to get there, just to say, nope, yep, it was wind, which it always was. But I'd done that a handful of times, and then I've gotten stuck. I've been stuck out there, and then I just sleep there because I can't get home. So it was pretty wild.
So I'm guessing it's all unmarked buildings and stuff, because you don't want opportunistic junkies and stuff breaking in.
Yeah. And it's a big part. People would come and look through the trash because they think you're throwing away stuff that's valuable. I mean, they can't get into the building because it's a state-of-the-art facility, but yeah, they'd come dig through the trash. And so when we had to get rid of weed for some reason, or if it was moldy or just was categorized wrong in the inventory system, they would make you get rid of it. We had our own wood chipper. It was a grinder in one of the rooms that we would take, and we would dump stems of the cannabis plants, or just the stuff that you weren't harvesting. We had to mix it with cardboard and dirt and different kinds of things to make it unusable, because then it would go in big black trash bags, and then it would go in our dumpsters outside. And I mean, you'd have to sift through 80% of just garbage, gross, yucky shit to find some stems of a marijuana plant that didn't even have any THC in it anyway. So they were really, really restrictive, on how to make sure it didn't get out. For sure.
Interesting. Yeah. What about the strains you're making? So there's what are the main categories? Indica and sativa, and then there's hybrids of them. What's the difference? If you're growing for a medical operation like this, I'm guessing you have to tell them specifically what strain you're growing, and then grow only that, right?
So this is really interesting. So you every plant has a lead grower, right? And that's the expert that knows how to grow. And they're usually some young buck who's been growing from home, like since they were like a teenager, and they've gone mainstream, right? And then they know what to look for, what to do. They just know all about the strains in particular. And so our lead grower, he came from Colorado, and so he was a guy that was there before me, who was working in the pod. So what he said, the one thing that any growers will, the only thing growers can basically agree on is that they can't agree on anything. So every grower thinks their way is to do it is the best way, but none of them really do it their own way. And so when you start talking about sativas and indicas, yeah, indicas are the ones that's supposed to make you sleepy. Sativas are supposed to make you, a little bit more energy. But mostly now the weed market has been so saturated and strains have kind of like mixed and seeds come from this and that. Most of them now most are all hybrids, even if they say they're sativas or indicas. There's a couple out there that we kind of call super sativas, meaning they're probably true sativas, but most of them are just kind of gotten all intermixed. And one reason for that is, like in our state, you would take there's a popular strain called Fruity Pebbles, right? That people know they like. It kind of has a sweet smell to it. People like it. But if we want to bring that in, our state made us rename it because it sounds like something that kids would want, and they don't like us to have strains that have candy that sound like they're candy, or like superheroes. I mean, there's Incredible Hulk one. I mean, they didn't like any of the mainstream strains that most people in the country knew, and so when we had some of these strains, we were tasked to rename them. So we had to submit new names, and they wanted it to be like local, named after like local North Dakota stuff. And so these really well-known strains that people knew, we had to go rename them like Mount Rushmore or something. I mean, not, which is South Dakota, but we'd have to name them something different.
Bismarck bomb.
Yeah. And we couldn't tell anybody. I wanted to tell people on the street, hey, this strain that everybody loves, it's actually here. It's actually called, Bob, it's called whatever. I mean, so we renamed it, and the board, three guys, the board they would basically shoot down almost any name we'd give just to make it difficult. And so I started naming
Grizzly Breath. I think that's good.
I started naming strains, made up words named after acronyms of like the medical marijuana's, like the names of their kids, as a way to just be like, I'm kind of mocking them in a way, because they're like, we don't like this. So I kind of named it after these guys' kids sometimes, and they didn't know it because I did it like in a puzzle way. So that was our way to kind of get back at the man a little bit.
I think Grizzly Breath is good because your breath might be a little grizzly afterwards as well, and there are grizzlies.
Gosh, I can't even remember some of the strains we have because we had one called Black Cherry Madura, which it's a lower THC content, but it just smells like cherries. It was the sweetest, most amazing strain, and it was it's like deep purple color too. It was really cool. People loved it, but it was only like 15% THC, maybe 14, which would have been great. Which would have been great in the 70s, 60s, but it's low nowadays.
With weed, I'm still a Van Halen era smoker. Like I am lightweight. I can booze on whiskey all night, but that 13-14%, whatever that even means, that's probably my upper limit.
Yeah, I don't really smoke it still, so I don't know, a little bit, but not much. But your viewers will probably find this interesting. So so federal law, the United States, marijuana is illegal, right? But then states' rights kind of supersede that, except for slavery. We had a whole war about that, but but for some reason it works for marijuana and not for whatever. Our country is very hypocritical in a lot of ways. But so there's a reason though, like you have like Oregon and Washington, like both two states in the very top left corner of the United States. Both of them are very progressive, very liberal. They've been smoking weed out there forever, and they were one of the first ones to make it legal. But you can't take it. You can't take it across the state line. And you'd be like, why does it matter if the border's a border, right? And the reason is because the federal government in the United States there's an invisible one inch strip of land in between each state, and that's owned by the federal government. And so you're basically going from one state into the federal government and then into another state. And so I think that was initially there for like gun laws, so people couldn't take guns across borders and try to control that a little bit better, which I totally agree with. But so we couldn't bring in a strain from outside of North Dakota for a new strain. But So the question is, from the state, like how do you get marijuana in the state of North Dakota when you first start out, right? If you can't bring it in legally. And so our the medical marijuana board, they gave us they did this twice. They probably won't do it anymore. Twice they gave us a 15-day no look window where they allowed us to update our inventory, because we all have the same inventory software, so they can see what we have everywhere, everything, every plant, everything we have. They can see it. So they would just like basically turn their heads for like a week or two, and then our parent company would ship us little clones. So clones meaning you can pluck a piece off of a marijuana plant, just like a little leaf, and then replant it in soil, and it'll grow. And there's your weed reference, right? They grow very easily like that. And then so you're having a clone of a clone of a clone of a clone, going back decades probably. And this is why most of them, I would say, are hybrids now, because they're not pure for the beginning, because everybody's cloning them. But so our company they would send us a box, and it would be like 12 tennis ball cans, and each can would be some soil and a clone, and they would ship them to us. And so they would show up at like one of our houses. We never had it shipped to the actual place. We had it shipped to like one of our, like I had one shipped to my apartment one time, and so now I have 12 clones of marijuana plants, like in the back of my car illegally. But that's the way that the law said to do. The law basically says you have to do this illegally. We're just going to turn our heads for like a week or two. So if a cop pulled me over, I would have been in trouble, and the medical marijuana board would have been like, "Oh, we didn't know anything about it," because they can't. So it's a weird, risky. It's a weird thing, but they're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place.
If they wanted to, at that stage, anyone with the motivation could screw you. Like the federal government can hit you with a RICO charge or whatever because you're crossing state lines
Yeah.
in a criminal enterprise, right? They'll hit you with mafia charges.
Right, and the state could get me too, because now I have plants outside without now I have plants growing outside of the facility, which is illegal by the state. Even though the state is the one that told me how to do it, but there's really no way around it. They just have to admit.
A good lawyer will argue against that and saying they're not actually growing while they're in your apartment because they're not getting nutrients or light or any of that. So
Agreed. But who wants to deal with that? Yeah.
yeah, a good lawyer will start defining the word, what is to grow, what does it mean to be alive, all that. You can get away from that. But I'm just saying the government, even now, I don't know what the statute of limitations is on these quote unquote crimes. But now, even years later, they could just decide to take anyone who's been involved in legal medical marijuana and say, actually, you've all committed a RICO felony or whatever they're called, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I guess they could, but we're going in such the opposite direction. Yeah. It would be there'd be pandemonium, but yeah. They could. Absolutely.
And then it's just a bunch of business people, like normal people like you, who are suddenly like
Yeah.
answering questions from, yeah.
Yeah, I basically worked in I was the director of growing, right? Of the cultivation. I was the director of the whole farm, but 90% of my job was I was dealing with the law and the government. Most of that was just me. It was compliance, and so we were really, really, really meticulous about that, because they'd find us, and they were really trying to do everything they could to not have us succeed. And so we were really careful. And that was one of the reasons I was actually brought in, to have somebody that could talk to people a little bit, and wasn't just like because most of the people in the industry are basically potheads, right? And they know a lot about weed, but they're not going to be able to have a conversation with somebody, with like a state like legislator, have to go into court or go and represent and stuff like that. And I had some experience doing that kind of thing, and so that's pretty much why I was brought on. But I was only there for a year, and so it was short lived. But we got everything. Our purchase happened, that went through, and then we got into our new building. Those are my main two jobs.
So at any stage were there raids or federal government just miscommunicated and thought it was a cartel growing up or something?
No, no, federal government stayed out of it. Maybe 15 years ago in Colorado, when they were first starting, they probably had some of that. But by the time they got to North Dakota, which is a very conservative state anyway, they pretty much left it alone. They would have, they would have gone to California, Colorado, Oregon first. Anyway, we just weren't, there weren't enough of us there, or enough weed. But yeah, we definitely had some hoops to jump through. Things like we would do deliveries, so we would deliver them to a dispensary, and from one side of the state to the other was about a 7.5 hour drive. And so we would go deliver to these dispensaries. The problem is, once it was in our van, our unmarked van, is you couldn't take it out. You couldn't stay in a hotel and leave the van out overnight if there was weed in it. You always had to have one person inside the van at all times. At all times, even if you had to go use a bathroom break, you would pull off like a rest stop. One of you would wait in the van, the other one would go to the bathroom. You come out, then you switch. I mean, that was how tight the laws were. And then the problem we had is if there was something was wrong, like a label was wrong, or something hadn't sealed correctly. There's just something wrong when we were making delivery, like on one product, like one tiny gram of weed. Our tamper-proof sealed sticker had like come up a little bit, and we've got, we have 50,000 of these in the back of the van. I mean, it happens, right? You get something kind of messes up, and so then that dispensary is not allowed to accept it. And so we'll make all the deliveries in the world, and we'll have 1 gram that we have to bring back, right? Not a big deal. This thing's it's like $12, right? It's nothing. However, by law,
Lose the whole batch.
no. After we would deliver it, by law, we would be 7.5 hours away from home. We'd have to drive 7.5 hours back that night. So 15-hour driving in one day. It ended up being like a 20 to 22-hour day. And this happened probably more than half the time. We'd get rejected something, and we'd have to drive back.
Doesn't seem efficient.
Seems reckless and dangerous, and and in the snow. And I always wanted to say, if we ever did that, or we got tired, or I wanted to pull into the driveway of the president of the medical marijuana board and say, hey, can we just sleep here tonight? In your driveway, because we're sleeping. And so I fought that battle for 6 to 8 months, and we never won that one. So I'm not sure what they did there, but we would regularly have 14 to 18 hour, sometimes 20-hour days driving. As the delivery people, that's where it gets kind of sticky, because everything is locked in bins. And if you knew you might have a problem, you were very tempted to go back there and just push down on some of the stickers, right? So you wouldn't have to, so you could go to sleep because it's 10 o'clock. You don't want to be driving until 6 a.m. to go back.
I'm sure no company ever did that, huh?
Yeah, I did it. I didn't tell anybody I ever did that while I worked there. But it's that or you're driving for 15 hours straight and you're sleeping, and it's the safety. So I did almost every single delivery because I was not going to ever make one of my employees put them up against that, right, and expect them to have to do a 20-hour day. So I would always go. I had to bring somebody, but I would always go. Yeah, I don't miss those long days.
Yeah, if you don't mind me asking, considering your shifts and the responsibility and all these hoops, was there a lot of money? As in, were you fairly compensated while you worked there?
There was. I mean, I made 6 figures barely, but it was the grower and I both made that. But I mean, it was. I mean, I took a pay cut to go do the job because I just thought it would be kind of fun to do. So as far as a director level position, that's not. I was barely into 6 figures. That's not a lot of money for that level of a position typically. And our employees would make, gosh, we were hiring them at like $14. We weren't $14 an hour. They were not getting a lot either, because people just wanted to be part of it, and so you could get away with paying a little bit less.
So closer to like any kind of startup business, really.
Yeah.
Like a successful revenue generating startup that has all these hiccups to figure out and legalese to sort out and all that, right? Not that different.
Some of our other directors at some of the other facilities were making a lot more, but they were producing much higher volume than I was. And we had them in Pennsylvania. We had them in other states that were, had 20 times the population of North Dakota. And so they were compensated better, but it was an interesting time for sure. So we did have a van kind of break down on us a little bit. We needed to have some work done on it. And by law, one of us we had to negotiate with this mechanic place because we had weed in the back of it, and we had to negotiate with them to allow one of us to sit in the van while they put it up in a lift. I mean, it was just crazy because they wouldn't let us stand outside the van because somebody always had to be inside the van, even if it's having like oil changers. It was just it was chaos. It was pure chaos and just unreasonable. They wanted us gone. They didn't want us there in their states. They just made it hard.
So now, if you fast forward to today, if you think about how it's grown, like technology and stuff, those kind of hoops you had to jump through and the difficulties, and then also the legal side, how has it changed now? Is it much easier?
No, I think if anything, it's probably getting harder. And I think people are. This is a little bit guesswork by me, but I think people are getting a little bit nervous too because if it becomes legalized, like across all 50 states, you're going to have you've got a company like the one I worked for that put tens of millions of dollars investing in North Dakota. Now, if the people in North Dakota can now get their weed by mail or from another state, that's where it's like a fourth the price. Like we couldn't compete, because we have all this money in this, and we would be out of business overnight. But those other places would just be raking it in, right? Everybody would be getting their weed from Colorado probably because they managed to do it really cheap, inexpensive, and so it'll be interesting to see what happens. I thought President Trump was going to sign it into law this last week, but he just declassified it so they can study it. But it'll be interesting to see what happens if it does go legal like that.
Yeah, this declassification, you have these schedules, right? Schedule 1, Schedule 2 drugs and stuff.
Yeah.
And marijuana was weirdly up there with like the worst drugs in the world.
Heroin.
Yeah.
Marijuana. Meth. I mean, come on. Yeah.
And I'm not a big weed guy, but I know it's not as bad
I know.
as like the other stuff it was listed with. Like you don't have to be a genius to figure that out. How did it take that long?
I mean, it's yeah. Hey, so I'm glad he did it. So that's good. But there's a lot of drugs. There's a whole story that I'm vaguely familiar with. I mean, this is all the Reagan. This is Nancy or Ronald Reagan, in 1980, our president, and Nancy Reagan, his wife. Her big thing, she started the Say No to Drugs campaign in the United States. So you'd buy a pack of cigarettes and you open up the pack, and on the inside of the pack it'd say "Say No to Drugs," right? That was a big campaign, and that was like right at the precipice of like the whole, maybe like this a little bit of a psychedelic revolution, right? Psychedelics had gone mainstream a little bit in the 60s and 70s, marijuana as well, and becoming much more accepted, and people were using them safely. And Nancy Reagan classified, if I have this right, that's when everything got classified basically all together. And so whether you had LSD, heroin, marijuana, right, which to me are three completely different worlds of drugs, they're just all put in the same pot, and everything's bad, which I think is dangerous for people that want to experiment with things, right? If you're teaching people that if people smoke marijuana and marijuana is fine, they may look at heroin as being fine because it's in the same class, So I think it's a dangerous way to govern.
Yeah.
But this is a good move. This is a good move that Trump did. I can't believe I just said those words, but maybe the first time I've ever said that. Can we edit that?
No, we can't, because in the last couple of years I have found myself agreeing with political things that I didn't think I would either way. It happens. Yeah. With age. You find yourself in the middle, realizing that you were duped with all these teams in the first place.
I'm with you on that. I'm partyless over here, so.
Hey, speaking of teams that we support, we're friends of the alphabet people. What is a hermaphrodite?
That is now a derogatory term that you're not supposed to use anymore. Intersex.
Are you not meant to say hermaphrodite about the weed anymore either?
Yeah. I know. I'm taking it the same way you did. Yeah, it's technically it's the right word. It's the right word to use, but we would use it as a verb when we say herm. Like a plant could herm out, meaning It had because nobody will say the word anymore because it's just like a bad word to
No,
use.
well, you're making me think of a human herming out now.
I
So what?
know, I know. So this is what it is. And so when you have a seed, when you get a seed and you plant it, it's either going to be male or female. It's pre-decided what it is, but there's no way you can know until you plant it, grow it, and about 3 or 4 weeks in, you have to look at it and you can see it has. I mean, there's little small like little bulbs on it, or there's like kind of like almost like pricklies. And the small bulbs are means it's female, and the pricklies means it's male. A lot like humans. But if you get a male plant and a female plant in the same room, it's going to be a problem. They're gonna pollinate, right? And you don't want that. And they certainly can. You can have a female plant can turn into male and destroy all the other plants, and that happens. And this is another reason you have to have people go through and de-leaf every day because they'll see that if it starts to happen. Then you take out like the 10 square feet around it to make sure you didn't disrupt the whole 1,500 plants. But they do something with using colloidal silver, and you can feminize seeds. I'm not sure of the process, but you can make them feminized, and so you know they're all going to be female, which is what we ended up using.
Sounds like some Monsanto technology as well.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, we're not even getting to the human. How? Yeah, I don't even know. But but you can control it, but it's really unstable, and they can pollinate themselves sometimes. They may be female, but they'll sometimes they'll pollinate themselves, and then they'll turn a whole batch into. They're all, as you say, it is the right word. But they'll all be hermaphrodites then after like if you don't catch it in a couple of days. Then you'll have a whole thing. They'll just yeah, females turn to males. It's weird.
Well, we'll just clip that as a soundbite from you. The Trump thing followed by that
Yeah.
sentence, I think.
You're gonna undo all. You're gonna get me in trouble. All the activism I did. I'm gonna put myself in a corner here.
All you're lucky we don't do clips. See, I haven't joined the whole clip farming on TikTok. That's like some end of the world shit, that end of Western civilization shit that I don't want to participate in. So
Yeah.
this is long form content where you hear the context, you know? What about, so from just popular culture, I've understood that the moment of harvest is really important for like the flavor and potency of the plant. How do you know? Is it like, does your grow guy just go in and smell? All right, it's
It's
ready.
it's feel. It's growing marijuana is truly an art. I mean, it really is, and it's not. I'm not just saying that. It is feel. Even identifying why things aren't why some plants aren't growing as tall, or why they may just not be looking right, or everything is feel. It's I mean, it's like a parent and their kid. Really, it's just you just know that you hear the cry. You know that's a hungry cry. You know that's a I got to change the diaper cry. You just kind of know, and I didn't understand that until after I left. And then when I lived on this island that I talked about in my other conversation with you, I grew weed out there, and I learned that not the hard way, but I learned that in a fun way. Going out and seeing the plants every single day, you develop. We only ever had like 16 to 20 plants at a time in like a 10 by 10 like tent, grow tent, and it's 5 below outside, but we're growing inside a garage in a tent and monitoring all the heat and humidity. But no, you develop like a relationship with each plant a little bit when there's that few, and yeah, it's like a feel. And I mean, now there is a certain look you're supposed to do. I mean, when they're ready, they start to crystallize. They start to get these little white tips or whatever, and you want to get that as far as you can, but you wait a little too long. Really, you're trying to harvest to get the maximum THC, and so it'll spike up your levels of THC. And then if you wait, it'll start to kind of come down. And if you wait too long, you really run the risk of like mold and other stuff because the plants are now starting to die. Kind of, I mean, they're not annuals; they don't come back every year, so you have to replant every year even if you're outside. But yeah, it's a gut, it's feel, and you can't just pop one off and then go smoke it because it's a 3 to 5 week process, really 3 to 8 week process to get it ready to smoke. And so you can't
Yeah.
just by that time, everything's dead or it's too late.
So you need artists, scientists, business people, and some lawyers in this whole operation.
Oh yeah, but most strains though are now if there's a 60 to 1 to a 64 day like flower schedule. So it's usually within a few days. So there is a science to it. If you're not sure, you could just say, okay, 64 days, we're going to harvest. That's 64 days from the time that you made the light go 12 hours of light, 12 hours of dark and 12 hours of light. So you can do it that way, but we didn't. And our grower was really good. Yeah, we trusted him. He always did a good job. We got really good. And then he taught me. So we learned how to grow when I went to the island, and I grew out there, and we grew some good weed. So
Yeah. Now, towards the end, a couple of big questions. Your relationship with this plant now, because you're a very intelligent guy and a hard worker and, experienced and stuff. Do you think you'd be where you are in life if you had been a heavy weed smoker? Because see, I'm not philosophically against weed, and I think it certainly should be legal if alcohol is legal. But there are casual users of alcohol in my life that pretty much run the world. Work in AI or work in top executives at law firms or wherever, and they might have a glass of wine with their business lunch. But if they had a joint, they probably would need a pot of ice cream and then a nap. So it's not exactly like a achievers, high performers drug. Like there's an element that heavy users are still kind of losers in many ways. I mean, maybe not in the arts, but you know what I mean? So what would you tell your grandkids about weed?
So I would tell everybody to not smoke. Nobody smoke weed until you're 20, 21, 25 years old for sure. Just because you're of what I understand about brain development and what it can do to stunt that. Beyond that, this is a tough one for me because this is something I didn't know you were going to ask me this, and so this is something that I think deeply about almost any topic like this. This is one of very few things I've intentionally not gone too deep because I think I won't like where I may land with it because I do enjoy an edible couple nights a week to help me sleep, right? I do wonder if it slows down processing, it slows down motivation. Certainly while you're high, there's no question. But I think the real question might be what you're asking is what about the other 20 hours in the day when you're not high, right? Of how it affects you and over long term. And to be honest, this is what we're going to find out based on Trump's executive order this week. They're going to be able to study it now, and they're going to be able to come back with real results.
Real data, yeah, real science is, yeah, this is interesting.
My take. It's hard for me to have an opinion without really having any science to back it, which is kind of the point of what happened this week. And so, but I will say this: like a lot of things, I think weed is probably going to be a thing that is very, very helpful for a lot of things. Obviously for people that have cancer and pain, like, people swear by it. I know firsthand a handful of people that would have just let themselves go with cancer had they not had weed, right? Because it was just so miserable. However, there's going to be downsides to it as well. And so, just like anything, it's about knowing yourself and knowing what you want, and then making sure to just be careful with it and everything in moderation. And it's kind of a cop-out answer, but it's really true. I've certainly taken weed for sleep, and it's helped me battle through some insomnia that I had about 6 to 8 months ago. But there are certainly times I feel like I may struggle with some word retrieval and some things here and there, and that might be a little bit of age too. But it makes me wonder of what causes what. So I'm going to kind of be on both sides here on this answer. But I mean, there's definitely a lot of positive, but yeah, there's definitely some risks, I think.
And yeah, and all of these things can be true at the same time. It's certainly a medicine. It's certainly a business opportunity. It's certainly probably regulated completely moronically, and it's all of this can be true. It can be very safe. It can be very innocent, and people shouldn't be afraid of it. But then also, what I'm saying is that with booze, we know problem users are a problem. With weed, there is this thing where you're not technically a problem user, but if it's a bit too much of a hobby, then you're likely to be a loser in life. And that's all I'm gonna say, unless you're making money as an artist or something, like they tend to perform better with drugs. But
Well, yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. I mean, inspiration, I think for mental health and inspiration, things like that. I mean, and pain, stuff like that. weed's certainly helpful. And the comparison with alcohol is probably the obvious one. Is alcohol. I mean, I never say no. I never say anything in absolutes, but pretty much alcohol. There's really no benefit of alcohol, and there are benefits of weed. I mean, I think the world would be, if alcohol didn't exist, the world would just be a better place. I think in general, we'd find other things to replace weed. I'm not so sure. I mean, weed's got. I mean, weed gives people anxiety. Weed treats people's anxiety. It's like
Yeah.
everything's different. It's not like a medicine that you've got to like try it. It's like trial and error with it, really. And I know people that cannot. It keeps them up. For me, it knocks me out. And so I can't function in the day if I'm high. I don't do it ever during the day ever. I know people will go to work and people will do life high all the time, and I don't get that. That's not me. But psychedelics are the same way, really. I mean, it's a lot of psychedelics treat some of the issues that psychedelics can cause if people aren't ready to take them.
Yeah, I mean, you can have a PTSD from an acid trip.
Right, and then like I got to take mushroom psilocybin to go treat the PTSD I got from my acid trip.
Yeah, yeah.
95% of people out there are smoking weed or more or for recreational purposes, right? And we just say, well, it's good for us for this, that, and the other. But I think mostly, let's just call it what it is. We smoke it because we like it. We like how we feel. We like how we think. We like how we can interact with other people, and not be. I don't know. It keeps you calm, relaxed. I mean, like they said, people aren't smoking weed and getting all excited and going to rob banks, but
Or stabbing each other outside pubs or any of that stuff that often alcohol has a part in. So,
right. It's all love. It's all love and peace, and it's the real '60s and stuff. But
some of it is that, yeah. What do you think in the next 5 to 10 years? Where's this gonna go? Like, you've been inside the business a little bit. Water usage, climate change, all this is part of it, but then also new technologies, drone delivery, all this crap.
yeah, I think weed is going to become so easy to get, like alcohol. It's just going to become a non-thing, really. I don't think because it's just going to be so readily available, and it's a matter of time. The next 10, 15 years, it'll be. I would imagine it's going to be it's going to be legal everywhere, most places in the world, even but definitely the United States.
Yeah. And we know about lobbyists in your country, and now since there are these mega corporations behind this, now they're gonna have a lobby as well, pushing it politically.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see. I can see both sides of that. I can see that being problematic if it becomes legal, and then also really good if it becomes legal. So there's a lot of variables there. But for the most part, though, I think it does way more help than it does harm. So
Yeah. What do you think about the messaging around weed? It's been taken over by maybe you would call it like bro science or something. Like a lot of people in the creative professions are, not to mention any names, but they might rhyme with Shmo Mogan or something like that, who have been pushing for legalization with more or less scientific arguments that may or may not be fully, the full picture. Do you think like what people know about weed is accurate? Do you think the
um,
messaging is there?
I think we have a pretty good understanding of weed in this country, at least. I can't speak beyond here. I've mentioned this a couple times now, but I think with the uptake and the interest in psychedelics now is just gonna overshadow it. Joe, I mean, sorry, your Schmo Bogan he talks about psychedelic use a lot as well, and I think we're already there. There's already some states here where you can do therapy with like MDMA, psilocybin, stuff like that. It's such a big thing right now that's going everywhere. I just think weed's going to get left behind a little bit. We had an opportunity in around 2013, 2014 was a time that, at least in the United States, people were talking about legalization of weed and how bad it is, and there was a lot of like give and take and kind of battling politically on weed around that time. And the best thing that ever happened for that argument for pro cannabis people was was marriage equality in this state, in this country. So legalizing gay marriage, right? That just became way more polarizing around 2013, 2014 than weed. And cannabis just kind of like it just slid under the radar and just kind of started becoming legal in all these more states and other parts of the world because everybody was worried about the gays, lesbians, trans people like taking over, right? And pushing all that on their kids. And I think that helped cannabis become way more accepted because it was just less of an issue to the general population. And so I think we're kind of past it. I think we're on to psychedelics now, and they're just going to have to figure out how to make the laws work for cannabis. But I don't know. We'll see, though. But we'll see with this new law, with the new executive order that Trump signed, to see if, I mean, he does stuff fast. When he does stuff, he does stuff fast. And we'll see if we start to get research on weed now really quick. And I bet we do. So I think next couple of years, we'll probably have a definitive answer to that question.
Yeah. Excellent. Hey, thank you so much for this. I learned a lot. I did not know most of this. I don't know what I'll do with it. Definitely that smell, you know. Sometimes I smell it and I'm like, yeah, maybe it'd be nice to smoke a joint. Oh, you're lighting up right now. Okay. We live in different jurisdictions. You can't do that here in the UK, you know.
You can't?
It's not a no. It's still I mean medical is legal here, but I don't know. I don't even know what is legal and what isn't because I never buy it, so I never have to deal with it. But I hope at least in this country that they do something like Trump, that at least that the research can take place freely. I mean that we can all agree with, right? That should happen everywhere.
Yeah, I think we should be able to research all of them. I mean, even heroin, right? I mean, how are we gonna fight these epidemics, right? Whether it's heroin, fentanyl, meth, if you can't study them the way that you want to. I'm not saying that you want to send people into trials to take heroin, but heroin's already in our pain medication. You know, it's just opiates. You know, and Adderall isn't too far off from meth. I mean, there's a lot there we're already kind of studying it. Methamphetamine, they're in a lot of drugs. Yet we have people tweaking out in the streets, right? And we should be able to study them. I think we should be able to study them all.
I certainly think for old people, I think after a certain age, everything should be blanket legal, pretty much. Because imagine what like some amphetamines can do for someone like struggling to get out of bed or whatever. Like if you're sick enough or old enough, I think whatever, try anything you want.
Yeah, I agree. And yeah, hey, if you want to have a what do they call it, like an assisted suicide, if you're that age, that at that stage in life where you're like, I want to go, and I know some states allow that. I don't know what it's like there, but if you want to OD on heroin, then you should be allowed to.
In Europe, if you want to do anything weird, you go to Switzerland.
Okay.
You go to the mountains in Switzerland, all of that shit is legal there, you know?
Did not know that.
Don't know about weed, but if you have some weed up there, who's gonna come get you?
Right.
So, it's like our Fargo. Hey, thank you. You have a final message now that you're a couple of tokes in. Do you have an inspiring message?
I do. I'll here's some education for your audience, for people that don't know this. If you have weed, like in the flower form, you know, people make their own edibles. They'll make their own butter, right? And they'll make it with coconut oil and stuff and make their own stuff. Because this is how we started this conversation about getting high without heat. So people don't know this, but it's called decarboxylating. So you can decarboxylate weed. So if you get regular flour, you can grind it up with like a little coffee grinder, and put it on some aluminum foil and put it on a cookie sheet and bake it for at about 220 degrees for about 40 to 45 minutes until it gets kind of like barely light yellow brown, just barely. And then you take it out. And so now you just have weed on a cookie sheet, right? All powdery. Now you could literally lick your finger, dip it in, eat it. It tastes gross because it's just eating weed. That'll get you high. So you can do that. You can put it in like little pills if you want to, and you don't have to make an edible. You don't have to buy an edible. You can just turn your flower into your own little edible and walk around with it in your pocket. You don't have to smoke it.
Excellent. I can't try that right now as we're in different jurisdictions. And obviously, officially, I don't recommend anyone try it. But
no, you should not. No, you should not do that ever.
All right, Jake. Thank you for your time. Hey, thanks, and sorry I was late.
No, we're all good, man. Have a good night.